Welcome everybody to Distilling Insights, a tequila tasting with an analytics twist. We're excited to celebrate Cinco de Mayo Eve with you. We go to the next slide. You'll see that I'll be your MC. My name's Jonathan Goff. I lead the AI machine learning and custom application development team here at Converge. Chris Foster is the host with the most. Is going to be talking to you today. And we've got Rita Ora with us, who is obviously an icon. And the most important person is Peter, who's going to teach us all how to make tasty beverages in case friends want one tomorrow. With that, let's just take a look at the agenda real quick so you know when you'll get your first beverage. I'll give an intro. I'll try and keep it quick because then we'll get to make a drink, so you've got something nice to sit while Chris bathes you with knowledge and information. And then Rita is going to just kick it off and light it up before we make another drink, and then back to Chris, and then a drink, and then we'll have some questions at the end. So please do stick around. I believe Chris has got some material for us that may be thought-provoking. Extremely interesting. We'd love to continue that conversation while you polish off that third drink. So, as I said, this is advanced analytics practice within Converge. Advanced analytics can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, right? It's a very rich area. On the left-hand side, you see, what does that mean? Well, one of their, strengths is AI, machine learning, and custom application development. Implementing technology that takes data and turns that data into a decision and then into an action. So for example, virtual agents, being able to help people as they call into a call center or a chat bot. Also deep search using natural language processing and natural language understanding to take information that's embedded in text and surface it for an individual to understand, parse, and then utilize. Predictive analytics, visual insights, and of course, data science and RPA. We also have a very strong practice around business analytics and data visualization. A practice that is focused on helping organizations visualize and see and understand, have that information from data in front of people, shared, democratized, governed, such that people can make decisions and drive a business. Our data platforming and integration team is extremely important. As people like to say, right, data is the new water. It is the lifeblood of an organization, and the absence of it is difficult to make decisions. And so our team works with organizations to make sure their data estate is in a good place, to implement new data estates, data warehouses, data lake houses, data puddles, and make sure that everything is streamlined, and help organizations that are moving from legacy systems and modernizing them and getting them in a place that is optimized for the future. And finally, financial operations and performance management. Continually changing market conditions. The Office of Finance is extremely important as things undulate up and down and change. Now it's more important than ever that there are tools that the Office of Finance have to guide them through automation, integration, and analytics to improve budgeting, forecasting, and those planning processes. The advanced analytics team has got 30 years of experience, over 100 different resources. And when we come, how do we do this? We take a vendor agnostic approach, but we also understand in the landscape that all of us, to some extent, have deep relationships with vendors. And so, we maintain top tier partnerships with the logos you see here, in addition to many of the niche vendors that are out there. We're not coming to you to push a vendor, but what we do have are technologists that are fully trained on all these technologies that are trusted advisors. So you might ask, how do we do this? And you'll see on the next slide, um, we do this through advisory, being trusted advisors. As I said, our legacy as Wall Street consultants comes into play. We do this through helping you develop solutions, whether they be implementing a tool or a product or custom application development to connect disparate systems together to create a single pane of glass to run your business. We do this through training. We offer training and mentoring to help individuals get spun up on these different technologies. We also work with you to come up with an analytics roadmap, right? Many people we're all on a journey getting everything, get all of our ducks in a row, so to speak. Or I guess today, in this case, all of our tequila shot glasses lined up, right? And it's a process. And our technical team can work as trusted advisors to help you down that path and help you, with managed services as well. And of course, licensing is always a complicated, sticky task, and that's something we can support. As I mentioned, I lead the AI and ML team, especially today as we sit in May of 2023. Artificial intelligence used to be a dirty word, but it now has gained popularity again. It means a lot of different things. I like to say that it's taking data and turning it into a decision and taking that decision and then turning it into an action. And so our team operates in these different verticals. Computer vision, taking data as it comes in as an image or a video, extracting the information from it. Is that a person? Is that a car that's coming too close to me? Is somebody wearing a mask, not wearing a mask? Is somebody not supposed to be in this part of the building, right? Taking that information and making it actionable. Speech to text and text to speech through computer voice, assisting people through help desks, phone lines. That goes hand in glove with natural language processing and natural language understanding, taking information that's embedded in text and making it palatable, understandable. So as you may know, Chat GPT type of models sit in this space along with the enterprise search space to be able to find information and people from unstructured text. We also are practitioners in predictive analytics, my favorite vertical, trying to understand, what's going to happen in the future, being able to plan, understand, who's going to be, how many customers are we going to get? What are sales going to look like? How can we predict customer attrition or customer conversion? And finally, the gateway technology, process automation, right? We all use different applications all day, every day. And process automation assists in helping take a lot of those error-prone, mundane tasks, copy and paste from an email to an ERP system, to a billing system, to filling out a spreadsheet, allowing people to be able to offload a lot of that mind-numbing work and get back to doing more productive things that can add value to a business. And so before I hand it over to Chris, before I hand it over to your drink, the mixologist, I did want to tell you about 3 quick different projects that we worked on. First, we worked to create a search application that leverages these deep models to help a bank identify documents, portions of documents, and people across 4 different languages to assist in optimizing their workflow, help them save over $10 million in lost time digging and looking for things. Imagine if you could search and find exactly what you needed, regardless of the language, in the paragraph out of a 150-page document. Another example was using a large language model. We trained it to be able to identify from a news article, which organizations that were listed in it were most likely to be engaging in a business transaction, provide a probability around it, and even identify potential monetary amounts associated with it. And lastly, in manufacturing, we worked with an old school manufacturer to enhance and increase production by providing visibility into what was going on at the each point in the line, at the department, and across the whole thing, so that individuals were aware of where they stood regards to everything else, but managers also could get in front of potential slowdowns and make sure that the production line moved smoothly. So the moment everybody's been waiting for, it's tequila time.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. And that was all really great, insightful stuff. But you did say I was most important on that call, and I want to just make it clear that that's very far from the truth. But I'm really happy to be here. And to that point, to show you how unimportant I am versus our guest in a little while, I do not have 16 million Instagram followers and several top 100 Billboard songs. So, and my shower singing is terrible. But I do like cocktails and tequila, and it's what I do for a living. So thanks again, and thank you to Rachel at Addie's in Buffalo, New York. Thank you to Annie for putting this whole thing together. It's really an honor to be on here and meet so many people from all over. I love when you guys put in the chat where you're from. I'm in Long Island, New York, so I'm sure you guys are from all over the place. So it'd be cool to see where you're from. Also, pop any questions in there, but I'll go ahead and share my screen and start diving into the first cocktail. This is Prospero Tequila. It's a brand we created in 2019, just before COVID, in collaboration with a few people, mainly two that we're going to talk about today, the master distiller and then our chief creative partner, Rita. But it's a very good time to be in the tequila business. It's also a difficult time to be in the tequila business because there are so many tequilas. I mean, the category has just exploded, and every liquor store in the country has probably expanded their tequila section, not by choice, just because there's so many brands now, from The Rock and George Clooney and Kendall Jenner and the guys from Breaking Bad. I mean, it's unbelievable how hot this category is. But we have a really nice award-winning brand here called Prospero with three types: Blanco, Reposado, which you guys have, and Añejo. So a few facts, but while I'm doing this, I want you guys to learn about the brand, but I also want you to start working on your cocktail. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing in a moment, but we're going to make a Paloma, and I believe you guys have the ingredients to do so. You should all have some grapefruit juice, some lime juice, and some club soda, and obviously, most importantly, the tequila. So I'm going to go ahead and whip that up. You guys could read about the brand, but I'll be talking about the brand. Fire any questions away if you'd like, but let's get into this. We're going to go 2 ounces of tequila, and if you guys turn your video on, it'd be great to see you all make this, or maybe you pre-batched it and made it already. So 2 ounces of tequila. I got a little mixing jar with some ice here. We're going to go 2 ounces of grapefruit juice. That's perfect. You've got a half an ounce of lime juice. Now, this isn't really necessarily a shaken cocktail, but you can give it a nice stir to get all the ingredients mixed in.
And Peter, we're having a hard time seeing you actually make the drink. We can see you, but we can't see.
Yes.
Yep. There we go.
This is the most important part right here, Annie.
Perfect. Gorgeous.
So you guys should have a beautiful light pink Paloma. Apologies, you couldn't see that in work. If you saw my desk right now, you would see what a mess it is. I can actually probably show you. But if it doesn't look like this, you're doing it wrong. But the color of the glass is pretty close to what I'm looking at on there. So I'm going to go ahead and take a sip. Ooh, came out great. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share again, just so I can talk about this brand. Prospero Tequila is one of the few tequilas still produced by a Mexican family. the point of saying that is, I mean, you see these brands like Diageo and Constellation brands and these worldwide global drink companies that are just monstrous. And it's nice to still have a small niche tequila brand that's owned by a small company. The big guys, they've got their Don Julios and their Casamigos, but we're proud of that. And I mentioned Stilla Anguiano before. There's a little bit more information we're going to get to in a few minutes. But Stella's been a master distiller in Jalisco for 30 years. She's started with Jose Cuervo after studying at the University of Guadalajara, and has been in the business since in a very male-dominant category. So this is Stella. I want you guys to just take a minute to look and see a little bit about who she is. She's really an amazing woman, but not looking for any sort of fame or glamour. Her English is very limited, if at all, but she's the woman really behind the juice that you guys are drinking. She does an amazing job for us, and we're thrilled to have her. We've got tons of awards and ratings from the San Francisco Wine and Spirits Challenge, Ultimate Spirits Challenge, Wine Enthusiast. So just the fact that this woman has been a master distiller in Jalisco in such a male-dominant category, the spirits business and tequila business, you think of the Beckmans from Jose Cuervo and all of these, you always see really men. It's nice to see a woman kind of being the unsung hero behind this brand. And then just one other thing I want to point out, Prospero's additive free. And I don't know if you guys are following the tequila category much, but additive free is sort of a very trendy term right now. Additives in the sense of glycerin and caramel coloring and sugar-based syrups like the aspartame. So there's some really poor things that, maybe in some of those tequila brands that are out there, especially in, the days 20, 30 years ago, the stuff that made you feel not so good after a night out. I'm sure a lot of you guys have had some of those nights. So I know I have myself, but we're proud to say we're additive free. Some people think it adds, some good flavoring. I tend to think it takes a little bit away from the tequila itself. So essentially Prospero was named after the settlers that settled in Jalisco specifically. Some European, some African, some Mexican. Those are really the people who found themselves settling in Mexico for a more prosperous future. There is a horse on there which pays homage to that, for the folks who did set out from where they came from and found themselves in Mexico. So that's essentially where the name Prospero came from, because I know someone did ask that to me a few days ago. So it is a tequila from the lowlands. And here is some shots from our distillery. The other reason there's a horse on the label is that there's a little bit of a horse farm on the distillery grounds, which we think is really unique. It's not common. This is a small distillery compared to the Jose Cuervos and the Patrons of the world. So we're really honored to have this little place we call home when we're down there. And they really make some delicious tequila. It's owned by the Orendine family, but it's called Casa Don Roberto. So it really doesn't produce any major tequila brands. We're probably the biggest brand that comes out of there. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing before we get into that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the Paloma, and I know I did. It came out really delicious. And this is a fun, refreshing drink to make, especially in the spring and the summer. It's pretty easy, 3 simple ingredients, and then tequila, of course. And I hope you guys take this recipe and use it all summer. So I'm going to pass it along back to Chris, and I'll see you guys in a little while.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter. That was great.
You're welcome.
Let me get sharing here again. I'll throw the recipe up one more time in case people want to take a screenshot of this. Everybody's screen. I know we're passing. Okay, good. I know we're passing back and forth a lot, so hopefully that looks great. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to take the next 30 minutes or so. It's good. You've got 2 ounces of tequila to work through here. So let's spread it out over the next half an hour. And we're going to get a little bit deeper into what is happening in the world of analytics. And that's great. I'm glad you guys have a drink. I wasn't really sure what to talk about today. There's not a whole lot going on in our world of AI and machine learning these days, right? I'm of course being sarcastic. This is crazy timing for what we do, and it's a wild experience. It's really unlike anything I think any of us in the analytics space have gone through, for me in my career at least. Think about this, how many technological advancements have caused the debate where the two sides are, this is going to save humanity or this is going to destroy us all? It's insane. And I think every industry and every country is kind of looking at each other, not wanting to pause for fear of falling behind. And so really, what everyone is kind of converging on, so to speak, is, we need to stop or we need to shut it down. And so I'd really like, instead of fear mongering, instead of kind of just hyping up AI and saying it's going to solve all the world's problems, I think what we wanted to do is kind of open it up and show you how we think about this, because we are on the front lines of this every day. And the front lines are messy right now. If you hadn't read and you're not staying up to date on the news, there was an open letter written and being signed by some of the top AI researchers and practitioners in the world that says we should pause development on AI. And so that caused a whole bunch of debate. And there are people on one side saying we should keep leaning into this. If we don't, then other countries or industries are going to pass us and we're going to be left behind. And then you've got people like Eliezer. I don't know if anybody follows him. He's the founder of Less Wrong, which is kind of a philosophical / AI. He's considered the founder of thinking of general artificial intelligence. And this is a quote. This is a direct quote from him. It was actually in a Time article that he wrote. And it's really the first sentence that got everybody talking. And he basically said, the result of building a superhumanly smart AI under anything remotely like it is right now is that literally everyone on Earth will die. And that sounds like a really extreme statement, but you can see why he says that, is that you can't survive creating something much smarter than you. It requires such precision in planning, and we're just not there yet. So what you're seeing are the two sides. You've got the open AIs and governments who are dumping infinite amounts of money into this. And you got people on the other side who are the practitioners poking all the holes in it and saying, here's why we shouldn't do it. And to understand why we are there, I think it's really important that we go back a little bit and understand how we got here. So a little brief history lesson on AI. And really, this all came from reasoning, right? So throughout the Middle Ages, and yes, I will share it, Todd, thanks. We'll send it out after, so you don't have to frantically take screenshots or anything. But really, what was done for hundreds of years was exploring the possibility that all rational thought could be made as systematic as algebra or geometry. So they basically thought that a universal language of reasoning would reduce any arguments, like between philosophers, down to a calculation. And this idea caught on, that any form of mathematical reasoning could be mechanized. They then implied that a mechanical device, some imaginary device shuffling ones and zeros, could actually imitate any math-based problem. And something called the Turing machine, this is a really simple but theoretical construct, got scientists thinking about thinking machines. So computer science was born under that premise. We started to get programmable computers. Math really took center stage. Brain science became really important because brain science showed that the brain was nothing more than a network of neurons that either fired on all or nothing, right? And so information theory came from that. And we finally agreed that any form of computation could probably be described digitally. And then much like the transistor age, two guys named Pitts and McCulloch described what we would later call a neural network, and that is at the heart of machine learning. And so out of that came game theory. If anybody's ever seen the movie A Beautiful Mind, a guy named John Nash. And then in 1956, something really important happened. The Dartmouth workshop was held. And if you haven't read about this, you should pop it up on Wikipedia after we chat here, because this is the moment that AI really gained its name. They decided on artificial intelligence for a number of reasons. It gained its mission. It had for success, and the major players were all in the room. And that's widely considered the birth of AI. And so for the next 15 years, the focus was really on natural language, micro worlds, what were called micro worlds, and military applications. So DARPA came in and started pumping a bunch of money into it. And then we hit a wall because, the math and science were great, but computing power couldn't keep up. So computing power was limited. And we needed tons of training data, right? And if anybody works in this field right now, you know that these models are only good as the training data. And even if we could have gathered it from the real world in the, late 70s or mid 70s or 80s, we didn't have databases that could store it feasibly or economically. And so funding from DARPA dried up and money went to things like, it went back to war. So things like autonomous tanks or battlefield management systems. And then a boom again. So we decided, okay, instead of going really general, we'll get really specific. And so we went back from broad to specific. These were called expert systems. And so expert systems were all the rage, and they were restricted to really small domains. And this was what we called the knowledge age. So these were knowledge-based systems and knowledge engineering. Everything was very specific, right? We built like a supply chain expert system. But those also ran their course because they were so specialized. So desktop computers kind of took center stage. They were more powerful than these specialized AI machines anyway. And DARPA again cut funding, as did the British government and other people who were and other parties that were behind funding. 1993 onward is when this really gained steam. So Deep Blue, if any of you remember the chess playing computer, Watson came in, so IBM's supercomputer that kicked Ken Jennings' butt pretty handily at Jeopardy, and the internet age was really coming. And because those big tech companies behind the internet age needed massive computing power, they built it themselves. They then realized, oh, we could sell that computing power as a service to the general public, and the cloud was born. And so we don't have a storage problem anymore. We don't have a computing power problem anymore. And so the brakes are off. And boy, are they ever off in every possible way. So what you're looking at is a landscape of AI tools. If you live in this space, there's a new one every day. Jonathan just emailed me another one this morning that's offering $100 for every phone call that you take with them. Everyone and their mom and their cat has an AI company now, and our job looks more like Mythbusters than anything. And so what we aim to do through events like this and through relationships that we build with you in our community is to clear this up and help you with a path and share our experiences and help you manage all of this change. This is going to be part of your work and home life, no matter what. So let's talk about what's top of mind right now, given that everything has kind of exploded in a good, with a question mark, way. Designing for AI. So let's think, this is it. It's crucial to define the purpose of AI when we're building these models and to set goals for the implementation that we're doing from the beginning. Event-based insights. This allows us to do things like scenario modeling or pattern identification. So this is giving us the ability to anticipate outcomes. Synthetic data. We just talked about this, right? What do we use data for? We use it to train machine learning models when maybe real data is insufficient or it doesn't meet specific requirements. This can also remove things like bias from personal data, make sure that we're privacy compliant. When we talk about edge AI, hopefully people are familiar with this terminology. The edge, literally, if you think of AI as a network, so the very last mile of AI is, your device, right? So a device out there, being able to deploy AI applications on physical devices where data is generated, like a self-driving car or an IoT device on a piece of equipment or on a healthcare device. AI in science. This is where we use it for genome sequencing and identifying genetic disorders by modeling, complicated physics processes, understanding, really big computations like ecosystems in the planet, and advances in drug discovery, things like synthesizing molecules or identifying properties. Reasoning. I think this is the one's a little bit more theoretical, but the majority of AI applications today are about predicting future behaviors, right? So like what is going to happen and anticipating that. Causal AI is kind of intended to go after the root cause without mistaking correlation for causation. So, this is inference. If you guys want to blow your own mind, go read up on things like the free energy principle and active inference. This is a really interesting part of computer science and AI theory. Digital twins. I think idealistically, this has ties to the notion of the whole metaverse concept, less silly out of Zuckerberg's brain, and more practical applications in industry and machinery. And we're going to dig a lot into digital twins and optimization, specifically like combinatorial optimization. So think like decision problems, scheduling, route optimization, big linear algebraic challenges that we have. Too many to go through today, so we're going to pick a few. We're just going to go through these three, okay? So I'm going to go through them in order with you. Let's zoom way out and not talk technology for a second, but let's think about how, back to my original point, how does AI change life on Earth, and how do technology and humans coexist? And so for AI to truly make life better, I think we really have to step back and focus on creating and maintaining meaningful relationships between humans and machines. A couple of years ago, that would have sounded silly, but it's not true. You can see that this is going to be a part of our lives, no matter what, whether we're a student or a practitioner or an engineer or an executive. And so this designing for AI is more important than ever. And so to design authentic AI-based relationships requires us as designers to consciously understand ourselves and our businesses and our lives and our priorities before anything else. And the more we kind of understand ourselves and the purpose for why we are building these things, the better we'll be able to teach machines how to help our users be better. And so there's a lot of methodology behind this. You guys can go really deep if you want to. It can get very academic, but this is what designing for AI looks like. So, like I said, you have to start back at intent. So what are the goals, the wants and needs, the values that we have, that our business has? Intent gives our solution a purpose. Then we have to think about the data and the policies behind it, right? So all of that significant raw data that a machine can collect from us, from the world, and the policies that wrap around that and protect it. And then the understanding. So taking that incoming structured and unstructured data that we're going to collect from the world, and this is in the context of our domain. This is what we call machine learning. So this is where machine learning comes in. Reasoning, we just talked about this. So the system being able to apply logic and decisions to decide on the best course of action. Once it has all that data, what's the recommendation that it makes? Knowledge. So this is what the system knows. This is all past data that we've trained it with. This is insights. These are learned attributes that are measured up against the overall intent of the system. And then the expression is how the system delivers that response based on the content of the message and the understanding of the user. So how does it actually connect with us? Does it take an action? Does it give us a notification? How is it communicating back to us? And then our reaction. So what is the user's genuine reaction to the system's expression, right? So that's very much based on the quality of the system's response. Learning, this is a feedback mechanism. So the user is continually teaching the system how to improve. You know, when it says, was this a good response? Does this make sense? And you kind of give that feedback loop, it improves through direct and indirect responses. And then the outcome. So Jonathan talked about taking action. So the outcome is really, none of this even matters unless there's an outcome. And this is the consequence in the real world. So you're taking all of this theoretical stuff, the engine has churned, it's given you a response. What do we actually do with that information? So this in and of itself is designing for AI. Let's talk about generative AI. So using AI to create things. If you think about it, historically, whoever had the most data always won, right? So getting the right data is obviously the most important and unfortunately the most challenging part of building powerful AI. But collecting quality data from the real world is complicated. think about Google Street View. They have to drive a car down every street, every alley, up every pier. It is expensive, right? And time consuming. So this is where something called synthetic data comes in. It enables us to digitally generate data that we need on demand, however much of it that we need, and tailor it to exactly what we need it to look like. And you can think of who would have jumped on this first, companies like Tesla, right? So they were one of the first ones to kind of grasp the potential of synthetic data and AI. That generated data and autonomous driving go hand in hand, if you think about it. Not just to mention you have to drive a car with a camera on every street in the world, but the real world is crazy and unpredictable. So even if they did that, construction signs are going up, and people are digging up roads, people are crossing streets, new street lights are going up all the time. The world is crazy and unpredictable. So yeah, collecting all the data necessary to build a genuinely safe autonomous vehicle would be impossible. So instead, car companies built these sophisticated simulation engines to generate these massive amounts of data synthetically. And then in turn, they can efficiently expose that data to their AI systems for millions and millions of different driving scenarios, right? So and if there's lots of videos online that show Tesla doing this, because they open sourced a lot of what they do. They adjust the flow of pedestrians, they can increase or decrease vehicle speeds, they can change the weather, and so on. And that is the power of synthetic data. Let's talk about traditional AI versus generative AI for a second. So if you think about traditional AI, this is analyzing something that already exists. And generative AI is creating something that hasn't existed before. And so there's a couple of different techniques. I don't want to go too computer science-y on you, but essentially what happens is that you get two neural networks. Think of these as like two brains almost. One is generating things and one is discriminating things. So it's kind of, it's the judge, right? And they pit against each other to find an equilibrium between the two networks. So that's one way of doing this. And then you've got transformers. So everybody has heard about ChatGPT. That's a transformer-based model. And so basically what this does is kind of imitates cognitive attention and measures the significance of different inputs. And so there's tons of applications for this. I'm going to talk about a bunch of them as we go through. One of them, obviously, and I'll call it more fun applications, are things like this, right? So again, training where real world data is too scarce or too sensitive to use, like medical records or financial data. This has kind of gotten a little wild in that it's free, so you can sign up for all of these. I adjusted this slide this morning because I saw this guy tweet out the new version of Midjourney. If anybody's ever followed Midjourney, I highly encourage you to follow this organization. And somebody might know in chat, but I think it's like 20 people or something, and they are at the forefront of generative AI when it comes to images and art. But basically on the first try, this guy said, generate outfits inspired by Van Gogh or Basquiat or Monet. And this is what it came back with. These are getting scary good. And I think most people, if you told them, would probably believe those are real images. And there's a whole range of startups that now just focus on this generative, even universities. There's two companies, DataGen, Synthesis AI. They will give you human faces on demand, for example. So if you want to use them for marketing or whatever, these aren't actual real people, right? It's I won't say scary, but it is powerful. When it comes to development, this is something called GitHub Copilot. So this is a pair programmer. If you've ever worked as a developer, you always work in pairs with a buddy so that you can kind of edit each other and watch what each other are doing. You can see in this case, what's happening is that the actual human user is typing out what they want to do, like a sum of two numbers, and Copilot is saying, here's what your function should be. So it's actually writing the code for you, right? So instead of spending all that time on Stack Overflow or Googling for things, for code samples, you spend less time creating all that boilerplate and repetitive code, and now these generative AI models can write code for you or give you the constructs for code, and then you can just adjust. And since Microsoft owns GitHub, they have a lot of metrics and telemetry data on this. They said, code is being deployed more than 50% faster. That's not a tiny improvement. That is a massive productivity improvement. I'm going to test something here because I'm a video game nerd, and I hope you guys all appreciate this. I don't know how well the video will flow, but let's just test it anyway. So I'm going to hit play on this. But basically what this is, the Unreal Engine is a game engine, or you can call it like a computing engine that sits behind a lot of games and soon to be movies. And what they've done is built this model so that game developers, these are very complex. If you played a video game in the last couple of years, these environments are beautiful, right? They've got ray tracing and scattering and the light, dust particles in the air. What Unreal is doing is saying, we're going to abstract a lot of that development from you. So if you want to move a piece of landscape to the left, they've trained it on enough data, so it's seen enough real world landscapes and terrains to be able to rebuild that environment for you on the fly. So I'm going to show you this. And if you ever want to Google it, you can see the title at the top there. It's a YouTube video from a TED Talk. So I don't know if you can hear the sound or not. Somebody can tell me in chat. No? Okay. So they're adding this procedural assembly, and basically what they're doing is they added these little bridges. And then what they're going to do is the guy's like, I don't actually like where this is placed. And he's actually going to move it, and I hope you can see it to some extent. Because every single, these are called procedural elements. So what he does, what the developer does, is he wants to move it. And so he moves it to the right, and it rebuilds that bed. You can see that dry bed of a stream. And so the designer can come back, make a different choice, and move it. And then it rebuilds the world again. And so you can imagine all the art savings, all of the programming and testing savings that happen. And this is how movies and video games are going to happen in the future. And I'm not going to show you this whole video, but I really encourage you to go watch that, because it takes what would have been very expensive. Games and movies are very expensive to develop these days, and makes it simple. I just read yesterday, it's Netflix, about a series that Netflix canceled, Jupiter's something, and it cost $200 million, and they killed it after the first season. And it's just wild the amount of money that gets spent on media development these days. So imagine being able to fail much more quickly and much more cheaply. So anyway, I thought that was really cool. But again, I'm a video game guy, so is what it is. The third concept that I want to go through in the last couple of minutes here before I hand it off to our special guest is the concept of digital twins. So a digital twin is a virtual model that's designed to accurately reflect a physical object. So the object being studied, let's say it's like a wind turbine or something. We put a bunch of sensors on it, or they're built with a bunch of sensors related to all of its vital signs. Those sensors are generating a bunch of data about the object's physical performance in the real world. So like its energy output, the temperature and weather conditions, and more, and vibration. And then this data is sent back to a processing system, and it's applied to a digital copy of that asset. And then once we have all that real world data, we can use our virtual model to run simulations. So what if the wind gets too strong? We can age it, right? So we can say what happened within a month, and let's extrapolate that over 12 years digitally and see what happens, right? And so all with the goal of generating real valuable insights that we can take back to that physical object. Where is this best suited? Right now, and feel free, if you live in this world, feel free to chime in the chat. But really, right now, we're seeing it mostly in industrial applications, at least for now, because that is where we have an abundance of sensors. And so who knows? I read a lot of weird articles, and in the future, people think that maybe as we get more implants, this might sound a little Black Mirror, but the more we get implants, the more kind of biosensor data is out there. Maybe we could build a digital twin of ourselves, right? And kind of see how our genetics advance over time and pre-treat us and that sort of thing. So this whole concept of digital twin, now we have the computing power to be able to run those simulations. Really cool. But in the real world, again, where's it best to do it right now? Bridges, you might not know, most of the bridges that you drive across have sensors on them already that are being collected. There's a third party market or industry that supplies most city infrastructure with those sensors, and those bridges are really have a lot of to be built, have a lot of code that they get built against. So there's pretty strict rules, which gives us a nice bounded environment to analyze and create twins for. Anything that's mechanically really complex, so things like turbines and cars and planes, especially with jet engines, where the room for failure is pretty narrow. These are great places for us to create digital twins. Power equipment. So most utilities are taking advantage of this. These are big, complex infrastructure, generating power, transmitting power. Again, the cost of something actually going wrong or doing destructive testing or even non-destructive testing on some of those assets is pretty expensive. So, being able to do that on a digital copy of that asset is really powerful. And manufacturing projects. So digital twins are really helpful. This isn't just the engineering of it, but the real environment. So actually what happens when this thing goes into production and being able to simulate what happens in production. So I'll go through a couple of those examples right now. I think what's really important, you guys can read along. I'm not going to go through each of these examples, but the physics-based algorithms that are used in the development of digital twins really depends on the type of physical asset or system that's being modeled, right? So in the case of a mechanical system, so something that works very mechanically, the physics-based algorithm might model the motion of the components, right? So factors like friction and inertia and force. If it's more of like a fluid system or fluid dynamics, the algorithms might model the flow of fluids through pipes or valves or pumps, looking at things like pressure or viscosity or turbulence. A little bit of homework I want to give everybody is to think about the applications in your industry, right? Could you digitally twin any equipment or assets or machinery or buildings that you have? I think that's really important to think about. Okay, so that I ended a couple minutes early here for my part. I don't know if anybody from my team knows if our guest is ready or not, but I'm happy to hand it over. If not, I think it'd be a good time for Q&A.
Why don't we do Q&A and then move into the second drink?
Sounds
Sure,
good.
How about that?
That sounds perfect. And I couldn't see the chat while I was going. I don't know if anybody wants to rattle off a couple questions or comments that were in the chat. Jonathan, I don't know if you have any color commentary that you would like to add to this. I know this is the world you live in, so.
Yeah, we're in things are changing, as you said, Chris, every day. There's new startups around generative AI. I'm curious, in the audience, how many people have heard of ChatGPT? How many people are using ChatGPT? Probably tissue is to Kleenex. ChatGPT is to large language models. Incredibly helpful for, creating, somebody called out in the channel, right? A recipe or, need to write an email. Or helps provide inspiration and ideas. There's tons of different ways.
And you can see some people in chat. Yeah, Lee's using it daily. So I'm really curious, what role are you in and what are you using it for? And I don't know if people can come off of mute or not, but um, definitely type it in the chat because I think that's crazy. I use it every day as well. So, we're getting asked to write synopses or create tables or grids. Okay, no problem, Brian. Um, but what it's really good at, especially in our roles, is being able to do comparisons. So a compare and contrast, right? And you'll find that ChatGPT is really, in and of itself, just being a large language model, is very good at taking a whole bunch of information, distilling it down to the really important parts, and then comparing and contrasting those two things.
Yeah.
There was a chat that popped up. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, if somebody's using it to help build computers, gives you setup for overclocking. I was I was trying to write some code the other night and I couldn't remember the syntax for something and I just asked how to do it and boom, there it was. The description it gave me was, better than anything I saw on Stack Overflow with only a minute or two of browsing, but it was just easier to ask a question using natural language.
I see like some really good, and they pop up really quickly for me. So somebody's gonna have to be back up for me.
Poems are
But I see
fun.
things,
Yeah,
yeah, like art and graphic design, emails. I think the less time you have to spend hand bombing an email, the better, right?
yeah,
A caddy on the golf course. See things I didn't even think about.
yeah. Vendor to go away. There you go. That's great. I
That's
had
right.
to
Yeah.
write a bio of myself, and I am just not. I'm not very good at self-reflection, and so I just gave it a bunch of static information about myself and said write a bio. And I was able to sort of be inspired by what it wrote and get out of my own head and move forward. Travel itinerary. There you go. Yeah, there's a lot of tools out there right now that you can take these models and hook it up to tons of different things. Have it search the internet, right? And get me the top, summarize the top 10 Google search queries on subject X, right?
Classes on how to use these tools. Jonathan, I don't know if you have an opinion on that.
So actually, Andrew Ng so one of the biggest things that's come out of I'll say at least, the generative space is this idea of prompt engineering. One of the top minds in AI, Andrew Ng, actually just released a course through Google on how to do prompt engineering, which is sort of the art of creating well-crafted things that you give to these models to get even better results. And there's definitely going to be a huge opportunity to accelerate the way people do work through prompt engineering, right? If you've got to reply back to somebody or you're creating marketing material, whether it's images, you can do this with images, you can do it with text, replying to.
Yeah, I think
So
that's a lot of the discourse around like will it replace jobs, right? And I think it's still really important that somebody, we turn into information providers and then gatherers and communicators, right? So the whole concept of prompt engineering or understanding how to ask the right questions of these models and set them up is really important. Jonathan, you and I were looking at one the other day, which was, a giant JSON file, but it basically was a script and you run it and it creates a tutor for you in any subject that you're interested in, right? And you can adjust the knowledge level kind of or technical level from 1 to 10. And that's just in a box. And so I think there's this whole secondary stage to this, which is just learning how to interact with these models, right?
yeah, yeah. And I think it's really important to understand that these models, and there's lots of them out there now, they're trained on existing information, right? It can
Yeah.
take existing information and resynthesize it. So they're generating things that are quote unquote new, not seen, but not necessarily new ideas. And so in order for this to be completely transformative, right? We're not going to replace humans, I would say. We're going to accelerate what they do. just like the computer accelerated what we do. Um, you're still gonna have to have high quality data to retrain these models in order to understand the new and emerging things that come out. Otherwise, you're just going to be retraining a model on things it already knows.
Yeah, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about that later on, but just this kind of self-feeding, self-training thing, right? That's the bias, that's the drift that we have to watch for in these models. Yeah. And, as, if you're a data scientist, these things, but if you're just an everyday user, you're my mom or dad, you're interacting with these things, trying to make a travel itinerary, for example, maybe somebody has complained. People only go online to either praise something or complain about it, right? Nobody goes online and says, yeah, that was pretty good, 3.5 stars, right? And so when you're asking for recommendations, it could be skewed one way or another, right? So really trying to understand how to take that bias. We're relying on these models in between. We're relying on OpenAI or whoever is developing the models to put these controls in place. But that's not there yet. And that kind of goes back to the whole reason why people are saying we just have to pause, right? Because we haven't thought about all of this. Jonathan, I don't know if you have thoughts.
Yeah, that's the concept of alignment, right? Aligning the models as they're training. And so there's a lot of work being put, as Chris was alluding to, right, into creating these models so they're fair and equitable. And they've got controls and guardrails, so to speak.
I'm just trying to look at the chat on my phone just because it keeps popping up, just because I'm sharing my screen, so I can't see it. But if anybody else made comments in there, and feel free, I know Jonathan and I are talking, but if anybody else wants to chime in from our side, please do.
And I'm going to just take a brief pause for a second. Peter, are we ready for the next drink?
Yeah, we can get into the next cocktail.
Sure.
If you guys want to pick up where you left off. Well, we're waiting for our friend from London to join. So once I see her come on, I'll pause the cocktail making. But I'll dive into that if that's cool with you guys, and then we'll kick it back over to Chris and his guys. So
okay. This is just so I can get the slides ready. This is the margarita.
Correct.
Peter. Okay, cool. Well, guess what? It's tequila time again. Okay, over to you, my friend.
All right. Can you guys see my screen now? Is this a little better?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, we see the drinks.
Tequila sunrise.
Okay.
So what we got here is a tequila sunrise. We're going 2 ounces of tequila, more if you feel like it. It's what day of the week is it? 4 ounces of orange juice and a half an ounce of grenadine, and then I like to garnish it with an orange. There it is. Beautiful. Mine might not look as pretty as that, but I'm going to go ahead and get started with the tequila. I'm using the Blanco here.
And Peter, just a question on the tequila. Do you always use a Blanco in a tequila sunrise, or could you use
You
the
could use the
Añejo or
Reposado.
Reposado?
Reposado is definitely fine to use. I like the Reposado for a margarita because it does offer a little bit of spice and oak from that barrel. But that's a great question. Typically, the Blancos are great for mixing and great for shots, and I think the aged tequilas go better with cocktails because they just offer up a little bit more. I'm just doing my
okay. So
4 ounces.
So what have you done here so far, Peter?
So that was 2 ounces of tequila and 4 ounces of orange juice. I'm just going to do a touch of grenadine just to taste. And then I'm going to go ahead and stir it up. Let's get this back.
There you go. I like that view.
All right. Let's see. Let's give it a whirl. See how we do. Go ahead and flip my screen. Came out great. I don't know if you guys have made it over there or you're being lazy. No pressure either way. We're trying to have fun. It's 4:05 here. And while we're waiting for Rita, I'm going to pull up my slide and share my screen here.
I'd make a drink with you, Peter, but it wasn't. I live in Canada, so they couldn't get it across the border without getting in trouble. So
Me
Listen,
too,
we're not going to
Peter.
tell on you.
But which
We are
one is
not.
better, the Paloma or
That was the Tequila Sunrise.
the Tequila Sunrise? That one?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
So I want to talk a little bit about the distillery and literally our glass, because some brands have just completely stock bottles, and it gets a little bit, cliche when you start doing that. But we can proudly say, not only do we use recycled glass, our bottles are hand blown. So if you see under bullet point number 2, that person there is making bottles one by one. This is not a production line where they go into a machine and come out all done. This is hand blown glass. In that middle photo, you can actually see her with what she's holding. The bottle's hooked onto it. So we use recycled glass. Each bottle's hand blown, and then every bottle's hand labeled by a team of women, local women, because we do support the community in Mexico as much as we can. So I feel like there's a lot of good things just behind the liquid. I mean, in the glass itself. And hold on, I got to hi everyone from someone I know. But what I was saying while we wait is just that we're really honored to have some recycled glass being used. Each bottle, if you look at the two, you have the Blanco and the Reposado, you'll see little subtleties and bubbles and cracks almost in some of your glassware. No two bottles are the same for Prospero, compared to, let's make fun of Casamigos, which it's great tequila and all, but their bottle's very stock, and every bottle will look exactly the same, and it's perfect because George Clooney's perfect. So we're proud to say that about Prospero.
No, if anybody has any questions and they want to ask it live, feel free to raise your hand. And what we're going to do is unmute you and put you on a panelist so that you can actually be live, share your video, and it'll give us a good chance to do that face to face. So just wanted to chime that in.
She is. Hi, Rita. Oh, you might be muted.
Hi Rita, we're here now. Thank you very much everyone who's joined. We've got Rita now online as well. Thank you Rita for joining. Thank you everyone for being part of this tasting session. We're very grateful and hope you're all enjoying the delicious tequila, especially before Cinco de Mayo.
Thank you. Rita, is it late over there? Is that why we had trouble? Where are you, London?
It's just past 9, so it's all right. But I was just in the middle of rehearsal, so that's why I was about a couple minutes behind. Sorry about that, everyone.
That's okay. Thanks for joining us. And I want to just introduce you to some people from Converge. This is sponsored by Converge, IBM, and we have some technology folks from all over the country. I counted. We have 12 states and 2 countries on this call.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
Yes.
Don't tell me how many people there are on here because it's going to freak me out. I don't want to know.
You were in front of how many thousands or millions of people at the Met Gala, which you looked stunning, by the way. Congrats.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So I think I have some questions for you.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Annie, you want to go ahead and fire away with some questions? I know some folks submitted.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, who is a fan, she's going to ask the first question.
Perfect. Hi, Rita.
Hey, David Pacific. Sorry, that doesn't look like David, whoever that is. That looks... sorry, Alex. Go ahead.
No worries. I think I just wanted to kick us off and just ask you what drew you to the tequila business and how you got involved with Prospero.
Well, first of all, I do like a drink. That's the first and foremost. I think that's important to remember. It was more than creating just a drink. It was creating quality, I think, for me. Also, what really drew me to this was, it was about giving women, for example, myself and Stella, who I met in Tequila, Mexico, I do believe are underrepresented, in the spirits market. and a platform, I really just kind of wanted to try, as per Rita fashion, do something that is a little different and gives us a separate but incredibly valid platform. So when it comes to alcohol, you know, I would personally, I think women are typically seen more in areas like wine and prosecco, and I really wanted to show that, you know, we could also kind of get more in the harder liquor. And I know there's a lot of collaborations and there's a lot of, you know, famous people that kind of have brands and things like that. And so the reason why I wanted to do this with Prospero was simply because of Stella. Like, I understood she had a big background with tequila, and her family have a lot of have a huge distillery, and I trusted her, and I felt like, you know, when she said to me, you know, I've been working for my father and this and that, and I just thought, well, why don't you come into the light? And that's what inspired me, because I needed it to have a bit of authenticity to it. I didn't just want to be a face to the brand. And so that for me was it. You know, I recommend you guys all try it neat. That is my go-to personally. I love the aromas of tequila. I always have. I also enjoy mixing it in lots and lots of cocktails. My preferred one is the Blanco. I've recently liked to think that I'm a mixing connoisseur, but my friends tell me differently. But point is, it does taste good-ish. And I just really just believe in it. You know, I believe in the story the most, and I'm really backing this product as well. It's not just sort of like, let's make an appearance. I just want people to believe in the DNA of this product, and every bottle has been individually blown. I mean, that not one bottle is the same, so everyone feels a bit of a unique, I think, connection. And yeah, I've had a really amazing experience making it. So yeah.
That's incredible. Awesome to hear. I'm going to pass it over to David Pacific's daughter here. She has a question for you. Go ahead.
Our biggest market.
First of all, wow. I can't believe I'm meeting a real famous pop star.
Oh, well, I would have dressed up if I knew you were on the call.
I've actually always wanted to be famous too.
Oh.
And, yeah. So I was wondering, what is your favorite people that you've worked with, like, in a song?
Yeah. A lot, actually. You know, my favorite thing to do is work with like really inspiring women. So I worked with Cardi B, I've worked with BB Rexa, I've worked with who else will you know or care about? Because I feel like you might have a specific style. I've worked with a bunch of DJs. I just like to make really happy dance music, you know? And I think that you like to dance to music. Am I right? I only, but yes, I would also recommend when you get older to drink responsibly. But yeah, I do. It's all about inspiration for me. So they have to be really like inspiring to work with them, you know?
Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you guys haven't heard Rita's new song, you may have, because I think it's, what, Rita, top 5 in the US, maybe top 3. It is just blowing up with Fatboy Slim.
Yeah. At the moment, yeah, we're having a really incredible reaction in the States. It's one of the first times, actually, as a solo artist, I've had that sort of success without having a feature. So it's really, I'm really, really proud of that, to be doing it on my own. So that feels really nice. Well, I mean, Fatboy Slim as well, but you know.
It's so great to see that success here in the US, Rita. Congratulations. Really, it's unbelievable.
Thank
And
you. I mean, actually, I've decided to pack all my bags and I'm moving to the States. No, I'm kidding.
We'd love to have you. Hey, you looked unbelievable at that Met Gala event, front page of the New York Times.
I know. I should have been holding the Prospero at the same time.
Hey, believe us, we all said the same thing. But that was fantastic. Yeah. Congratulations. That was a beautiful dress.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, whilst I still have everyone, thanks for the comments. I'm seeing some of them. Jonathan, thanks for the hand clap. Jonathan Goo. I hope I'm saying it right. Sorry. I just wanted to just personally just say that this is just more than a venture, you know, this has been a lot of years in the making, and I work really closely with Roy, who's in Peter's camera there, discussing buyers, learning about different territories, understanding the market, respecting it, and just doing it properly, you know, and no expectations of thinking we're going to get any sort of special treatment or anything. But this for me has become such a overwhelming, and I'm a bit obsessed with this now because I really want to be able to understand this space and do something that I believe is not just about being a celebrity, but it has a longevity to it. And so, you know, I really love this brand, like more than just anything. It's like part of my family now because I've become really attached to Stella and the family and understanding how it builds, and I'm really proud of it. And I just really want to say thank you for the ones that have bought the cases, and you know, I really hope it reacts well and we can continue doing business, and that would be just my dream, really. And I'm here whenever you need me. So
thanks, Rita.
yeah.
Rita, I tell you, when we met 4 or 5 years ago now, I remember when we said that this was a product that was going to be made by women for women, you were kind of all in on that. I remember, maybe you could just talk for a minute about that. This is one of the few brands in Mexico where the master distiller is a female. It's not an easy thing to aspire to that, the pinnacle of your craft, being a female in Mexico. And Stella and you just really connected. I mean, two very successful, powerful women in different, you know, types of artistry have come together on this project. And I can't tell you how exciting it is to work with both of you, and how kind of gratifying it is to see the brand take off and how the consumers have responded to that. So thank you for everything you're doing on behalf of the brand.
Yeah, of course. I mean, as long as the story comes across too, I really feel like that's something that people should need to hear, you know. Yeah, especially with a woman distiller, I think that's a really important point. And so that's why we have this really lovely lady on the horse right there. And that's meant to be a representation of Stella and her going through her distillery. And, you know, I actually did see the horses there, so that we didn't make that
You
up.
were riding, and you too, you were riding those horses. I remember it.
Yeah, well, tried to. But yeah.
One of the few Mexican, one of the few tequila brands still owned by a Mexican family. The distillery, that is, one of the few distilleries still owned by a Mexican family. That's not, when you look at all the tequila brands coming out of Mexico, most of them are owned by foreigners. You go through from Casamigos, which was owned by Diageo, a British company, and Campari, an Italian company, owns Espolòn, and our distillery that produces Prospero is still owned by a Mexican family, one of only a handful left. And our glass is made there in Mexico. This is a really authentic brand that I know you've attached yourself to. So I was so grateful for that.
That's a good question from John, Rita. He said, I'd love to hear about the challenges and enjoyment of being a solo artist.
Yeah, I was just seeing that. Well, yeah, it's tricky, but it's also exciting. It's very unexpected. I think that there's a lot of ups and downs. It's like being on a roller coaster, honestly, because you love what you're doing, but it's also super, you know, you just never know what's around the corner. So I think what's really important is to try and find that grounding of like being proud of what you do. And so I think that is where the enjoyment comes, when you're like, whatever happens, I'm super proud of it, and not really focusing so much on results, because I think that can become really obsessive and sort of unhealthy as well, because that's something out of your control. So yeah, I think that's been a real challenge, because all the pressure really and all the sort of focus is on you. So it's about having the ability to like separate the two and really just being inspired by things that you love, and then just kind of taking it from there. I hope that answers your question, but I do love it. I do love being a solo artist, I've got to say.
No pressure. We won't keep you much longer, but can we expect you on a tour in the US? Did you hint at that, or is that a maybe?
Yeah, I think the album comes out July the 14th, and then I think we have a couple summer festivals and things like that going on, and then I think over Christmas I'll be rehearsing, and then a new tour will be announced at top of 2024. So that's the plan, Stan, for now.
That's great. Great.
Yeah.
We look forward to that.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for having me, and I know it's been a small, quick catch up, but I think I've said a lot. I hope I've made it really clear and easy. I have my notes here because I didn't want to miss anything. But yeah, please enjoy drinking this as I will to go to bed.
Thank you, Rita.
And
thanks,
Rita.
everybody.
It's Cinco
was
de
lovely.
Mayo
Thank you.
tomorrow. Make sure you have your
Bye.
Prospero for Cinco de Mayo. Thank
Cinco
you,
de Mayo.
everyone.
Yes.
Exactly, tomorrow. Thank you, everyone, for supporting.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
A lovely tasting session.
All right, guys. Thank you for some good questions, and that was adorable, David. That I think made everyone's night. You're gonna have high expectations next call, so maybe we can get another celebrity on for you. Roy, what other celebrities do you know?
Irish whiskey.
Can you call Matthew McConaughey?
I know Matthew McConaughey.
All right. Yeah.
Anymore. But maybe we get Tim Murphy to chat.
Yeah,
Our Irish whiskey.
All right, maybe the next call we do a little Irish whiskey, and we've got an actor he was in Sons of Anarchy and True Detective and Shameless.
He's great. He's
a real gentleman.
Yeah.
So all right, it's done. We're doing it. Next call. But I'll go ahead and send it over back to Chris, and I know you guys have some work to talk about before we make the margarita, or the Rita, as we like to call it. So
The
I'll see you
Rita.
guys in a few minutes, and thanks for chatting with Rita.
Thanks, Peter. Yes, and I know we went a little bit out of order, so just if everybody has some patience with me, I'll try and flip through the slides pretty seamlessly. But that was awesome, and I appreciate everybody typing in chat. I think this is the drink you just made, so if you didn't get a screenshot of this before, do it now. I think I saw when Peter, somebody asked which one was better. I think I saw a couple of people say they really liked this one, so I'll take your word for it. I'm on the water this afternoon, but I'm jealous. Back to analytics, and I think what I'll try and do now is kind of bring it home. We've talked a lot about the state of everything, and I think one of the worst things about webinars and web content and marketing events is when you come and you show up and somebody says, here's everything that's happening right now, and here's my opinion. And then they say, all right, thanks for coming. And they don't really give you any guidance or any next steps or any inspiration. And so I think what's most important to us is that you come away with this, both understanding the opportunities for everything. We've talked a lot about the applications of AI, especially today. And that answer is different now than it was even 5 months ago. And what we've tried to do, there's almost 3,000 people at Converge. What we've tried to do is take a lot of the experience and intelligence from throughout the organization and kind of bring it back down to something that is consumable. And so, that's the whole point of having a friend like us or a partner like us, is that we're out there in the field. We've got 5,000 clients around the world. We are doing these things every day. And so, you partner with us so that you can cut down on the false starts. We can give you the blueprints to use, right? We can give you the tools. We can say, here's the patterns that work. Here are the technologies that work. Here are the vendors that you really want to avoid. It's all hype and, manual coding under the covers. And so that's what I'm going to try to do here in the last little bit. And then we'll actually give you some things as not homework, but follow-up steps. Regardless of your role, I'm going to go through a couple of different roles and say, here's how we are seeing these technologies applied today in departments and industries. Okay. So I think what's really important to understand that this is real. I think, Jonathan and I spend a lot of time talking about this, and Jonathan likens it to the iPhone. And I think that's a really, Jonathan, I don't know if that's your idea or not, but I really like that comparison, because, you can't regulate or restrict an iPhone out of a company, right? Imagine business without smartphones. It just didn't happen. And I think that is what's happening here. I don't think there's any debate whether this is going to make its way into our workplace. And so what we want to do is show you real life opportunities. Some of you have already thrown these in the chat and you kind of stole the thunder, which is awesome, because, you're able to use these models and tools, and there's new ones every day. If you're a lawyer, there's one that was just released yesterday that was trained on a whole corpus of law text, right? So when we talk about the opportunities, this is the really simple, attainable, approachable stuff. So generating text, things like emails, somebody already mentioned. If you use I forget what the tool is inside of Outlook. Somebody probably knows it in chat, but it tells you kind of, what you spent your time on throughout the day. A lot of that is emails and Teams messages. And a lot of that is probably responses, probably could you schedule something? And we can take advantage of these models to automate a lot of that. So email, this is marketing content. So I don't know, our marketers on the phone, if you have opinions, throw them in the chat or you can comment later, but generating content for marketing, there's a downside to that. I don't know if everybody has noticed, but everybody seems to be a content creator. Viva. Thank you, Todd. It's exactly what it is. And it told me I spent 400, I breached my quiet time 400 times last week, which is not healthy. But everybody on LinkedIn now is a content creator. And you can just tell, right? When they say, here's a breakdown of these two tools, you can tell it was the first prompt chat GPT, and then they pasted it into LinkedIn. And so everybody's kind of, I don't want to say masquerading, but everybody can play an expert now. And so it's really, really noisy, but yes, you can take a bunch of content, distill it down and throw it out there into the community. What we talked about this earlier, text summarization is really, instead of having to consume an entire white paper, you can say, give me the salient 6 points from this white paper and do it at a, advanced technical or a PhD level, and it will give it back to you in that format. This is the stuff that's going to make us extremely productive and efficient in our worlds. And if we need to take a lot of that text and summarize it to our team, so that's the distribution of information, which I end up doing a lot in my role. I know Jonathan does in his role. A bunch of you probably do too. You can consume mass amounts of information, whether that's from vendors or research papers or journals, and distill it down and give it back to your team in a summary, right? Code generation, we already talked about this. Autocomplete, you saw a little screen recording of it in my presentation. So as I'm typing, much like the long and short-term memory models that are used for chatbots can anticipate, it's our autocomplete, right? And that's getting way better. It's infused into every email, every Teams message we write. You can just hit tab, 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 and on our phones or on our desktops. So not just generating text, but generating code as a programmer as well. And then documenting that code. So documentation can be done automatically as well. And I think that's really, really important. If anybody here has lived in a development or an architect or that kind of role, you know how much of a burden documentation is. And so now we can build these engines that kind of self-document for us. With that said, and I've alluded to this already, and these are some of the concerns and observations that have led to people saying we need to pause, but there's a lot of things to consider when you're doing this. Yes, if you're just asking for restaurant recommendations, then it's probably okay, but you've probably given that model your address. It certainly knows where you are. This is the web, so unless you use a VPN or something, it knows where you are. The more information you might say, close to my kid's school, and now these models know a lot about your personal life. It's nothing that Google or Apple doesn't already know, but you're willingly giving it to these, I'll call them kind of, these bots out in the wild, right? Some of them are proprietary, some of them are open source. So just be cautious of the kind of information that goes not just for personal, but for business data as well, right? You may inadvertently be leaking data about your customers or about patients or about clients. I think it's really important to understand that these bots and these models hallucinate, right? So I won't get into what that means at kind of a computer science level, but they will make things up, right? And if enough people tell it something is true, we'll start to believe something is true. And so it's really important just to understand that these models right now are most safely used as accelerators, not as the final word. I think that's really important. And Jonathan, when we get to the end here, I don't know if you have more thoughts on this. I know a lot of this is kind of the world you live in, but you can chime in when we get to the Q&A part. I think people would really like to hear your opinion, okay?
Absolutely.
We've alluded to all of this, and Jonathan, you and I kind of built this slide together, but, applications inside of a business. This is things like you were talking about, documentation. We were just talking about it, generating product descriptions. So this is kind of the confluence of, an image of something and being able to describe it. So we could, just take pictures of all of our products and generate descriptions of them, or take descriptions of things and generate images of it, right? And so you've got this kind of bi-directional flow of generative AI happening. Semantically similar entities. I think this kind of goes back to the digital twin kind of concept, where we're looking for things that kind of look like each other from a parameter-based level. Summarizing conversations. So, transcriptions that are happening, like this meeting right here. The transcription exists as this big blob of text, but being able to take that and boil it down to the most important points and summarize it is these are powerful out of the box applications that we could be using. And then there's vertical specific models. I don't know, Jonathan, if you wanted to comment on that specifically, but within each industry, this is kind of back to specialized AI, right? And that's where these models start to get really powerful because they're trained on a very specific set of data. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I think the use case you mentioned before, right? There are quite a number of different legal data sets that are out there, and training these models on them, it makes that a force multiplier when you're trying to understand clauses that are written into a legal document that may be 30 pages long, that can simplify it for somebody like myself, who is not a lawyer, right, and is not going to sit down and try to understand nuances in a 30-page document. There are a lot of different areas where the data is there, and you can make things just easier, seamless to get done.
Yeah, and I think the points on the right kind of highlight this, right? So and if you guys, even if you grew up in a very traditional kind of database world, let's say you're a DBA, you've worked with databases. The spirit of database development now is abstraction. So declarative coding. So basically saying, I want my end result table, or result set, to look like this. Hey, model, go figure out what transformations to do, what to join to what, clear out nulls, fix data type issues. And so we're using natural language to drive code output, right? And I think that's extremely powerful. Again, we're abstracting that real low level stuff away. Orchestration and chaining these models together. Jonathan, I think, we deal with a lot of our own data these days, but we also deal with a lot of third party or API kind of data. All of that is timely. It depends on when it was pulled and how we can join it together on timestamps, and making sure all of that is orchestrated. Again, we can push that orchestration to these models and allow it to chain them together. And I think that's really powerful. And then the goal, I guess, is to have this kind of AI assistant in our pocket at all times, regardless of what we are doing, right? Whether we are traveling or picking a restaurant or trying to teach our kids something, or we're at work, right? I think that is not as far off as we think it is. So I think that's really important to understand. In our world, here's the kind of things that are really mattering right now. The right tool for the job, I think picking you saw my slide of all the AI tools out there. That is no easy task. I think there are some that are ahead of others, and fit is really important. So trying to take Chat GPT, or GPT-4 and turn it into something it's not, just because it's popular, there may be a better tool for it, right? So that's where we can really help. Ownership, Jonathan, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but like the concept of owning your own model and controlling data.
Absolutely. There's lots of open source models out there. There's easy ways to train the models. if they're, Chat GPT, OpenAI's model can be used as an API. You can use it in a browser, but in a mature ecosystem, you can bring that on-prem. You can have it in your own cloud. You can control the data that goes to it. You can update and retrain that model with the data that you have curated in your own data warehouse. And so training that model to be, your flavor of intelligence, so to speak. So it speaks your language is the key.
And I think, that kind of ties into the co-pilot point as well, is that this doesn't just eliminate the need for a human with EQ and judgment and a communicator and relationships, right? Like we are using these tools to curate information and curate insights. We are the ones who are responsible for enforcing truth. And so, being the human in the middle, we have seen is really important. Our goal is to not just set and forget these things. We want to be involved, right?
Yeah. The humans are the subject matter experts, right? And so they're the ones that are going to decide, yes, you did summarize this, three different articles well, but one point was off. And that, I think that goes to the next point, which is the low risk but high reward. You want to use these not to be diagnosing why somebody has a stomach ache, right? You want to be using it for understanding 3 articles on the pop star we just spoke to. We want to. Yep. Replying to an email to my colleague, making it easier and get that done in 1 minute instead of 5. Not making decisions about my kid's future and education.
Yeah, completely true. And we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what those are, depending on what your role is and what kind of organization you're in. So let's get there. I think, and we're going to send this out. Somebody already asked this question. So these are real links that you can follow, but based on the 3 points that we zoomed in on today, we want to get you moving in the right direction. So these are some resources for you. So for designing for AI, some of the screenshots there I took are from our friends and partners at IBM. They do, IBM leads the way. If you look at quantum computing and just things that seemed, far-fetched and way out there that are now becoming real life. IBM's a great place to turn. I was just listening to an IBM fellow speak about quantum computing in the context of AI. And he was saying, oh, you think these models are powerful now when we're running them on, second or third generation, depending on how you look at it, hardware in a data center. Imagine these models running on quantum computers, which are real. And so we haven't seen the end of this yet. It is the beginning. And so IBM is a great place to go for some of these resources. There's an exercise here. So looking at human-centered design for AI, if any of you, I think it takes a little bit of Python knowledge, maybe not. You can kind of walk through the notebook and it'll tell you exactly what's going on. So don't worry about writing any of these down. We'll send this out. But this is a really fun exercise for you to do to understand the mindset and the thought process of designing for human-centric AI. Generative AI. So 2 links you probably all are already familiar with. One is to ChatGPT, which is the bottom one, and DALL-E, which is the top one. So this is an image synthesis or generative AI engine also built by OpenAI and the generator of some of the images I've used in this presentation. It's a lot of fun to play with. But there's a lot of learning you can do there as well. So OpenAI is kind of commercially at the heart of a lot of discussion here, and they've got a lot of really great content. The gravity that they have allows them to hire some of the best researchers and scientists in the world right now. So great place to go to understand what is happening in some of these generative models. And then finally, digital twin. Again, I have some IBM resources for you. When these are the biggest, when it's the city of Singapore or it's wind turbine farms in the middle of the ocean, these are the places that IBM plays, and so they've got a really great library of topics that can break it down at a really high level if you need it, and then a really technical level as well. So that's a really helpful article. And then towards data science. So if, hopefully you're all members of this. If not, it's not just for data scientists. It's just understanding how data science is being applied in the real world. And you can kind of graduate down or up the maturity curve as a data scientist as a part of towards data science. But maybe one of the best content hubs out there. This one is specifically how to build a digital twin. So some, practical advice for you on how to actually build these things, not just theoretical. So based on your role, let's talk a little bit about what it is that you can build. So I'll kind of go left to right here. And if you identify with any of these roles, obviously I couldn't fit 100 different titles onto a slide. So I tried to group these into a couple of different buckets. But if you work, let's say you work in a department right now, back to that low risk, high reward quadrant that Jonathan was talking about, applying RPA, which is robotic process automation, to workflows that you're repeating often, but are rule-based. So you could, given enough paper and enough pencil, you could write down the rules for what happens, right? When a new file drops into this folder, change the name, run this macro, copy from this column to the other one, create a new tab, email it to these people. Anything like that can be automated, and actually automated fairly simply. Even if the mouse needs to move, most of your organizations already will have some sort of RPA standard where that could be automated. So, if you work in finance and you're doing the close consolidate report thing that's done all the time and new scenarios are being created or whatever, these are great candidates for automation. And optimization. So taking some of those, if you work in Excel and you've ever used like the Solver tool or the Solver plugin, there's extensions that kind of go beyond that. So just think about anything that would be used to optimize. If you run a hockey league that needs a schedule and you need to kind of optimize who plays who and minimize travel, it's kind of bound by these parameters. Use optimization. There's a lot of tools that can help you do this with a couple of clicks. In the sales and marketing world, and I'm curious if my sales and marketing people want to add any opinions here when we get to the Q&A, but again, being able to synthesize media copy, so blog posts or articles or white papers that we need to create, proposals. I know we've talked about this kind of on the operations side of our business. We read a lot of proposals and statements of work, create a lot of PowerPoint decks. One of the guys on my team, Jordan, used GPT with slides.io, I think is a Google Slides plugin. Anyway, you can tell it exactly what to build a presentation for, and it'll build a slide presentation for you, right? You say, I want 6 slides with an intro and a summary and on this topic at a master's level, and it'll create it for you, right? So we can use it really quickly to summarize and generate content for sales and marketing purposes. Event-based insights. So you guys know marketing automation. Anytime you click on a vendor's website, you get a phone call 9 hours or minutes later. There's a lot of automation behind the scenes that is happening. So we can build these real-time workflows. When an action happens, do something about it. And so this kind of if this, then that trigger-based conditional action, really think about that. Not even just in sales and marketing, but in general. In the operations and engineering world, we talked a lot about digital twins, so that can really get people talking. If you're in a big organization, this is probably being done or at least played with to some extent right now. So try and plug yourself into that discussion. From an edge perspective, we work with a lot of new manufacturers. So whether those are, like cannabis startups or looking at things like alternative farming, they tend to start with the data. So they have a lot of sensors. They put a sensor on everything, and they're trying to use data as their advantage. But maybe you work in an older facility or your manufacturing assembly line, like Jonathan was talking about in his use cases, maybe it's a little antiquated. And so look for opportunities to put devices on things, set up a camera. You can do these things, for hundreds of dollars and build these models, and just start taking pictures of things, recognizing what's happening. Try and inspire your operators to think about manufacturing in a bit of a different way. In science, we can synthesize things really easily. So any complex data sets, if you work in bioinformatics or anything like that, you're probably aware of this, but science has a lot of applications, and I'll talk about a little bit about that in a second too. From an executive perspective, listen, a lot of this is just experiments if we don't get buy-in from the top, right? And so if you're an executive, really spend time. I know the executives that I sit down with when we do roadmaps and design thinking sessions, when we, you know, they're reflecting on everything in their business, every department, as it pertains to AI and automation. So whether that's just building awareness in the organization and saying, hey, everybody, innovate. Here's some sandboxes for you to go play in. Like, we're really thinking about this. We're embracing it. And try to understand the risks that come with that. But you know, I think if you are a leader, whether you're in a marketing department or you're in a chief human resources or people officer, or you're a CEO, you really should be thinking about how this could be a competitive or operational advantage. And developers, we talked about this. Hopefully there's a lot of techies on the meeting today, because these are the tools that are going to make us much more powerful. Generating code, doing testing, deployments, documenting, and allowing us just to be way more productive. And I think that's really, if I'm going to say, you know, hopefully we're already partners with everybody here. I can't see the list of all the names. I already saw so many I'm familiar with, but you know, this is the whole value of why a partner, not just us, but a partner is really important to you. Pick a partner who has thought through this, who can collect all this information and share it with you. That's the whole point, right? It's not for us to say, step aside, we'll do this for you. It's for us to teach you. We're going to give you our resources. We spend time thinking about how this applies to every industry. We sit down with the major cloud vendors, like Microsoft or Google or Amazon or Salesforce, and we say, how are you guys going to market? And then we are in line with them. We're making sure our blueprints and our patterns and the architectures that we're recommending, the technologies that we partner with, are actually viable in the markets within which we work, right? So this is the whole point of partnering with someone who is competent, right? I want to encourage you all. This is kind of where we start. So we do a lot of these, and these are the sessions where people start to understand the real life applications of what we've talked about today. So design thinking, and I don't have tons of time. I'm going to pass it back here in a second, but I really encourage you to go read up on design thinking and take us up on this. We will run a design thinking workshop with you, which is not just, hey, let's think and whiteboard and then we'll go away. We actually come up with something. So we use that design for AI concept about what are we trying to accomplish here? And we pick a minimum viable product that we're actually going to build together. And we actually make it reality. So we don't just talk about, it's not just fluff. We actually build these things together, and you have something at the end of it to take and show and demonstrate and inspire people around your organization and champion. So I am not a fan of just putting stuff on a whiteboard or in slides. We like to build real stuff that people can use. So send a note back to us. We'll follow up with you, but send a note back to us and do one of these design thinking workshops with us. They're extremely powerful, and you know, the results we see from them, I can't emphasize enough, are just, for me, you know, this is the most exciting phase in the last number of years for us. And really the genesis of it is these workshops. So I really encourage you to spend time with us. Talk to whoever you have a relationship with at Converge, and let's do one of these. And Jonathan and myself, or his team, like we'll all join and walk through this with you together. And with that, it's tequila time again. So somebody ring the bell. Peter, wake up. It's back to you.
Here. I've been anxiously waiting, Chris.
Amazing. Over to you, my guy.
Thank you so much. Yeah, guys, last cocktail. I've been anxious about this one because who doesn't love a good margarita? There's a million ways to make it. There's a million kinds you can make. Pineapple, grapefruit, jalapeno. I got a little grapefruit fever tree here, so I'm gonna do a little grapefruit twist. But yeah, here we go. So we're going 1.5 ounce tequila. There's your recipe. Perfect. Good timing. It's like we planned that.
I got you.
I'm using the Reposado because it offers a little bit of that. So For those of you who don't know, a Blanco versus a Reposado, the difference in color is because it's aged in a barrel for 6 months, which is the legal obligation to be a Reposado. It's got to be a minimum of 6 months. Blancos, or silvers, some people call them, you can make it and put it in a bottle and sell it tomorrow. So there's really no requirement there. And then for the añejos, which are usually the darkest, those have to rest in oak barrels for a minimum of 1 year. So 12 months in barrels. And that extra 6 months will just turn that liquid a little bit darker, sort of a little bit goldish. But a Reposado is usually right in the middle, a little bit lighter in color. But that little bit of oak and that little bit of spice, I think, is perfect for a margarita. So let's go ahead and mix her up. So we're doing 1.5 ounces tequila. I'm going to go 2 because this is the last one. So we got tequila. We got a little bit of triple sec orange liqueur. And if you guys have some questions, fire away. We're going to do a little bit of lime juice. I'm excited about this one. I hope you guys are making it at home, or at least you make it after the Zoom. All right, folks, cheers. That's a pretty simple margarita, pretty straightforward, has a nice color. Could have used a little bit more liquid in there, but that's all right. I'm going to go ahead and flip my screen around.
Which one did you make that with, Peter?
That was with the Prospero Reposado. It actually got delicious. Wow. So thanks again, guys. This was so much fun. Does anyone have any tequila-related questions? Prospero makes a great margarita. It's also great neat or on the rocks. I love the añejo on the rocks. It's almost like sipping an aged whiskey. It's nice to have Rita as our ambassador and chief creative partner. She's obviously a sweetheart to talk to, and I'm glad you guys got to meet her. And hopefully we'll pop into your local market for a bottle signing. So anyone got any questions, comments? Fire away.
We do have one question.
Sure.
For those of us who are not normally tequila drinkers, how do we educate our palate so that we can appreciate the different flavors?
Well, that's a good question.
All right. And then David submitted one. I'll take David's really quickly. Yes, we use ex-bourbon barrels. Bourbon barrels are unique because a bourbon has to be aged in a new charred oak, unused barrel to legally be called a bourbon. Oh, and yes, I used some Fever Tree grapefruit. Sorry to bounce around. But so you can't reuse a bourbon barrel. So we send them from our distillery for our whiskey. We also have a whiskey. We send them to Mexico because then they could be used for a tequila. They don't have to be new bourbon barrels in Mexico, if that makes sense. So it's a great way to take advantage of those oaky flavors. And it doesn't cost us anything because we're reusing the bourbon barrel for the tequila. So, and yeah, Fever Tree's great for ginger beer, grapefruit. They have tonic. They sell them at Target. You're welcome, Carol. And then, sorry, Annie, to answer your question, I think the best way to educate your palate is to do a little bit of not a blind tequila tasting, but grab 2 or 3. They could be Blancos, they could be Blanco, Reposado, and Añejo, and line them up and just start seeing what you like. Tequila now is actually the lowest in calories, so it's better than, whiskey and vodka in terms of calories. It's also the only upper. It's not I hate the word upper and downer. It puts you in a good mood in most cases, opposed to whiskey, what might put you in a little bit of a bad mood. There's actually science to that. So I'm no scientist, but yeah, I think just whiskey, tequila today, it's not like the old Jose Cuervo days that people had in college. Tequila is made a lot better with 100% blue agave. As long as it says that, you're drinking something that's low in calories and made from some quality. So I think you can go grab grab some Prospero, and if you see all the variations, thank you for the support. But you have two now, and I think you could just taste them straight up, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Some people are a little bit scared when it comes to tequila, but it's the hottest spirit in the country right now, and it'll put you in a good mood as long as you don't drink too much.
Good to know. Thanks, Peter.
And it goes great with tacos. I'll add that because I do love myself some tacos. And tomorrow is a great time to do a little tacos and tequila.
Oh, now you have my attention.
So it was good to see where you guys are all from. I counted 11 or 12 states. Someone used to be from Massapequa. That's where I live. I think it was Rich. I don't know if he's still on here. That's a small world. Cheers from Louisville. If you guys have any other questions, we still have 3 minutes. I'm sipping on my margarita.
Yeah, I'll kind of go ahead, Annie.
Sorry, Chris. I was going to say, any additional questions for Peter or for Chris and Jonathan?
Yeah, for anyone, just fire away.
So we will be sending out the slides. We'll also send out a link to the playback.
Totally. And Annie, I just wanted to end with this because we are running this event on the 21st of June. I hope everybody can come. We're going to go really deep, both into the business applications and kind of the technical wherewithal for large language models. And Jonathan, are you running this one?
Yeah.
Amazing. There you go.
With my team.
So you guys get to hear Dr. Goff go through this with his team and his experience and what we're doing in this. I think this is a great, you don't have to tell your boss that you're attending this one, and you can kind of steal our ideas and make yourself look really smart as you plan out how to deploy these in your world. So please sign up for that. That link will go out in the follow-up as well. And I don't know if anyone else wants to say thanks and goodbye, but that is it for me. Thanks everybody for listening. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks everyone.
Thanks everybody for attending.
Happy
Thanks, Rita.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Yes, and you as well. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.